Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I take a call on behalf of New Zealand First for the bill before us. We will be supporting this bill through this third reading. We do see merit the New Zealand First Party in many aspects of the bill, but we are somewhat disappointed, as other speakers have said today, in that it has taken this amount of time to come to this point of the third reading. And one does wonder if this had been enacted a number of years ago before the Rena disaster took place, whether we would be still looking at a wreck on the reef off Tauranga if the safeguards and the penalties and the legislative requirements laid down in this bill had been in place well prior to the Rena going up on the rocks. Mr. Speaker, this bill basically tidies up a lot of areas and moves things within the Maritime Transport Act across to the Environmental Protection Authority, now that we have the exclusive economic zone, the 200-mile zone out off our shores. So it does move legislation around to fall under different places of authority that are more appropriate for the administering of it. It moves some of these matters from the Local Government Act to the Maritime Transport Act in order that ports, harbours and general maritime safety can be administered under the Maritime Transport Act rather than being the domain of local government in many areas where perhaps local government is not perhaps the appropriate authority to have the overall national authority over the legislation in relation particularly to maritime safety and ports. It also doubles the penalties in other areas, which is a good thing. It's sending a very strong message in doubling those penalties that New Zealand is going to seek serious consequences and compensation from those who would come with vessels, with ships or any other craft and potentially cause damage to our environment. It allows the government to intervene through various agencies on the high seas in the case of harmful substances being discharged other than oil, and again where there is a situation of leaks or discharges or containers or a vessel carrying a cargo that has potential toxic substances that may come adrift, then the government has the legislation in place under this Act to intervene. It will also increase the penalties on ship owners and also the ships themselves in terms of bunker discharge, and again that's a good thing because there is a huge risk. Many of these vessels carry very large volumes of bunker oil, and again this country missed out on a great deal of compensation over the Rena disaster because this level of penalty was not in place to do so. It also, in terms of moving over to the Environmental Protection Authority that's now in place, there are merits in much of that, in that when it comes to areas such as discharging of harmful substances, radioactive waste, it prohibits the dumping of toxic or hazardous waste, and it restricts the dumping of any other sort of waste or the incineration at sea or waste of any other matter. And that therefore does very much come under the Environmental Protection Agency now, under the exclusive economic zone, because we are looking at something like the 5th largest economic exclusive zone in the world, and our continental shelf goes out a great distance, and therefore the EPA will be charged in terms of ensuring that any such hazardous waste certainly will be covered under this legislation. Mr. Speaker, it is again disappointing that we are having to look at the exclusive economic zone legislation. I sat on the select committee that looked at that less than a year ago. It went through a very, very extensive submission process from all sectors within New Zealand, from all over New Zealand in terms of the importance of the 200-mile limit. So it is somewhat disappointing again that the government has dropped the ball on this in not picking up some of these aspects in the first place when that very, very weighty piece of legislation was first brought through the House and through Select Committee. However, better late than never. We do see that there are still areas here that must be well scrutinised. We are living in a situation now where there is great risk to our environment in terms of our harbours, our ports, our shipping movements around the country, and in terms of general marine activities on such a large coastline. So it is important that this legislation is well monitored, that those who are given the authority as a result of passing this legislation and this third bill do very much respond to what will be provided to them in terms of the tools and the toolbox to ensure that New Zealand's environment and coast is protected. Also, in terms of maritime safety, there are many aspects in this bill that improve aspects of maritime safety, including offences where seafarers may be caught intoxicated in charge of vessels on the coast. And again, that is a very, very dangerous situation, like any public transport situation, but in terms of a large vessel where there is found to be intoxication, they can be fined up to $10,000 or 12 months imprisonment. And again, it sends a strong message that it would not be tolerated from seafarers being masters or indeed in charge of vessels. So, Mr Speaker, New Zealand First will be supporting this legislation, and we commend it to the House.
I call Dr Cam Calder.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise.